Well, hello neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. And today, continuing my look at American whiskey by opening up, giving a taste to George Dickel Tennessee Whiskey, number 12. As I said in the opener, thanks for joining me. I want to look at George Dickel Tennessee Sour Mash Whiskey. There's a lot of story behind this, and much of it I don't really know. I've read a little bit, but I think I'd rather just highlight the parts that I understand, because I really don't know the history of George Dickel enough to share and feel like, I can read it on the side here where it says, back in 1870, George Dickel began fulfilling his dream, crafting the smoothest Tennessee whiskey around. Instead, I want to say I understand that the Dickel Sour Mash Whiskey number 12, the 12 is actually an age stamp. It doesn't say aged 12 years, but from what I've read, that this is actually aged 12 years in charred oak, and it would be New American oak. Now, it's a Tennessee whiskey because it's made in Tennessee, but like other Tennessees, like Jack Daniel's, if it's a Tennessee whiskey, they use I think it's called a Lincoln press, or it's like the Lincoln press, because I think it's a little bit different between the way they do it there. But here, they char some old sugar maple, well, not old, but whatever. They char a sugar maple to get a charcoal, create some charcoal, pack that in vats, and then here Dickel actually chills the whiskey down, and then they let it go through that sugar maple char as a filter before it's put in casks to age. I believe it's before. I could be wrong. Yeah, I was looking for chill. Yeah, it says right on there. Chill filtered, small batch, chill filtered. So they chill it down, and then they filter it through that sugar maple charcoal process, which they believe, really creates a very smooth whiskey. And that's why it's not a bourbon, because you can't run it through that kind of filtration, as I understand it, to be a bourbon. Plus, I think Tennessee is obviously very proud of the whiskey that they make. And so this is proudly a Tennessee whiskey, and it has its own, region and character, and I think that's also why they're proudly saying it's a Tennessee whiskey. I want to clarify, I have before on the channel, but maybe you're just seeing the sour mash, and there's a variety of ways to do it, but in general, a sour mash process is when, after the mash tun has gone through that whole fermentation stage, so really it's spent. So you've got, most of the sugars are gone, and it's higher acidity. Then they take just a portion of that. How much? I have no idea. And they use that they might describe it as seasoning the next mash, the next day's cycle, and it could ensure some flavor. I know traditionally it was done because that acid would keep the bacterial count of the fresh mash before the yeast was growing. It would keep it low because it didn't have an impact or a high impact on yeast, but it would have a high impact on keeping bacteria count low. So traditionally that's why they do it. Now they could talk about creating consistency, flavors and whatnot, and I'm sure it does that as well. But it's key to note that sour mash just means that. Like if you were to taste that spent beer, it would be quite sour because of the high acid content. That's where it comes from, not the spirit itself. It has no... Well, I don't know that, but just because it says sour mash, don't immediately think this is going to be a sour whiskey. I'll put it that way. So anyways, proudly Tennessee goes through the Lincoln County press process. I understand it says 12 years, although I wish it would say, instead of like number 12 and number 8, it would say aged 12 years. I did a little bit of reading on their website, try to get a bit of kind of their process, and I thought it was pretty interesting that they age their spirits in only single-story warehouses, that they make a point of saying they don't believe in those really tall, right? Because the great variation you get in how the whiskey will be breathing in and out of the barrels if it's at the top of a 13-story warehouse versus at the bottom, right? So they make a point of saying that. So that's pretty interesting. So, you know, there's interesting history. It's kind of a neat looking bottle. I have to say it's crazy affordable. And so I was kind of looking forward to this. Let's see how it noses and tastes today. So, I'm happy to report that nose is not as off-putting as when I first got into it. Now, I can catch, you know, what I'm looking for. A little bit of that butter caramel. Yeah, no, there it is. So as I'm digging around, like obviously it's a high corn. I actually don't know. I should have really dug around to find that out. I do not know how much corn, how much rye, is it high rye, that kind of thing. And it has a huge impact on flavor. But I'm getting some of that high sweetness of corn. A little bit of vanilla from wood maybe. But probably that's why I made a big deal in the intro about it. Like, I find the nose to be sour. So if I think of fruits that I'm trying to get at, it's a little bit. I can't get past a souring vegetable nose. And I don't know. I've read some other people. I've watched a couple of YouTubes, and I haven't heard someone describe that. So it could be just me. But instead of maybe a bit of an orchard fruit in there, it's like a souring cabbage. Okay, that's really strong, but I'm not getting that today, thankfully. But, you know, there's still that kind of buttery notes. There's still a little bit of that high sugar note. Yeah, so some of it is classic American whiskey bourbon nose, but I can't get past something that puts me off, something sour. Well, I'm going to give it a taste. Cheers. I have to have another one. You know, talking about their warehouse, and well, I tend to buy my unknown scotch based on, is it chill filtered or not? I want the non-chill filtered. I want the stronger proof. You know, if filtering gives it a smoothing taste, I can be okay with that. So I actually really wanted to like this product. And I think some people would. I think its flavors are kind of characteristic. It's part of why I'm having a hard time describing it. I do find there's some good wood going on in there. In fact, even at the end, the finish takes me to some wood tannins, like kind of almost like a bitter wood, which I'm actually kind of okay with. I don't mind a little bit of bitterness in my whiskey. But I'm struggling trying to identify what flavor it is that puts me off this whiskey. It's mostly in the nose. And, you know, thankfully it's less than when I had it last time. So that's encouraging. When I first had this, couple of pours, not deep pours, it almost flipped my stomach. It's not like that today. So I'm sure lots of people will just pour it, love it, not pick up on that, you know, get into the classic kind of corn forward, wood. Yeah, really not much else going on. Oh, there when I kind of tossed it, I'm trying to get it in other places in my mouth. You know, I got kind of a nice smoothingness, a little creaminess to it. And I can appreciate that. So a little bit of cream, some vanilla, not a ton. You know, on the edges of fruit, but I can't get to what fruit it is that I'm tasting because the nose continues to take me to a place of spoiled fruit, bad fruit. Maybe I have a bad bottle of Tennessee whiskey, because I will say that this is, you know, aside from a shot here or there that I might have had, this is the only bottle of number 12 that I've had. It comes in at, 45%, which is 90 proof. Oh, there it is. I was looking for where that Tullahoma, Tennessee. I wanted to know where in Tennessee it was made. So, I really struggle. I think I need to drink more of this to be able to give it a good review. I will say, based on my first sips and my notes before sitting down with you today, this was probably going to be the worst score that I've given a whiskey. The nose was so objectionable to me that I had it down in like the 2-star rating. That's 2 out of 5. And I've almost, like, it's very rare for me to rate a whiskey that low. But the nose just seriously put me off. I can positively say that today, my mood is different. I'm outside instead of I was in the basement last time. You know, the nose is not that bad today. I can get a little caramel, a little oak, a little burn, actually, in the nose. Very, very simple in the mouth. It has a nice smooth mid palate. I will say, and now it's taking a while to get at the bitterness. The finish ends a little bit bitter for me, but bitter like strong wood tannins, which some people will like. So that shouldn't put you off too much. And the mid palate is actually smooth and creamy, and so I think quite a few people will appreciate the sweetness, a little honey sweetness maybe, vanilla sweetness. It doesn't have the deep, rich caramel, especially with that sugar maple charcoal filter process. I thought maybe it's going to be higher sugar, and you know, maybe there's some maple sugar in there, but it doesn't have that deep caramel, that cooked candy, cooked toffee. I'm not getting that. I'm getting more high sweetness, mid palate creamy. Finish is not very remarkable, little bitter. So it's probably heading toward a drinkable 3-star whiskey today. But based on my notes, it was down in the 2. It was like, I can't pour this for myself or anyone again. I'm happy to report that it's moved out of that range. So, I know I've read several reviewers that really like this. So, let me know what your experience is with Dickel Tennessee Sour Mask number 12. Even if this gets better with the bottle, it was so unfortunate up front that I know that I won't be replacing this bottle. But let me know what you think, guys. That's I guess that's my thoughts on George Dickel number 12 Tennessee whiskey. Let me know what you guys think. If you're new to the channel and you're willing to subscribe, give it a shot. If I've ticked you off, feel free to thumb down the video. But if you like this, I'm trying to be honest. For me, this was just not my whiskey to go to. You guys have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.